How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. Or if this is your first time here, my name is Edgar and this channel is about personal finance, real estate investing, stock market investing, and personal development. So if that is something you want to learn about, make sure you are subscribed. Today we're going to be looking at the top 4 ways people are wasting money. Did you know the average American spends about $5,400 every year on things they don't need? And I'm sure there's many people out there who spend even more. But what if instead of spending that money on things you don't need, you took that money and you put it to work through investments? Well, if you were to begin investing $5,400 every year from the age of 20 to the age of 60 and you were able to achieve a return of 8%, then by the time you turn 60, you will have over $1.6 million. I don't know about you, but I would much rather have $1.6 million instead of nothing at the end of 30 years. So with that in mind, let's look at the first thing you should stop spending money on, and that is retail therapy or making impulse purchases. According to an article from CNBC, the biggest area where people spend the most on impulse purchases is with food, which at first I was a little hesitant on believing, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I mean, how many times have we been out with other people and someone else goes and gets some ice cream or a pretzel, and even though you didn't want anything 10 minutes ago, you still end up buying something? And the same goes with eating out at restaurants. Maybe a friend wants to go grab lunch or some drinks, and even though you plan on eating at home, you end up going out to eat, so now you end up spending more than you would have by eating at home. Then think about how many times you get takeout or use Uber Eats simply because you were too lazy to make something at home. Plus, how many times have you bought your morning coffee at a coffee shop instead of making it at home or getting coffee from the office? At the end of the day, all these small $5 and $10 purchases begin to add up very quickly. And although I'm not saying you should never go out to eat, you should pay attention to how much you're spending on food when you go out. Then, according to the same article, the second and third biggest money spenders are clothing and household items, and they found that about 85% of impulse purchases happen because people want to take advantage of a deal or a discount. Now, there are a few ways you can avoid making impulse purchases when you're out shopping, and one way is to wait a few days and think about whether or not you need what you want to buy. For example, you could be shopping for household items that you actually need, like toothpaste, toilet paper, and things of that nature. But then you find yourself in the home decor section and you begin looking at what they have. And eventually you come across some items that you think will look great in your living room. And this is where most people would just go ahead and buy them. But if you just hold off on buying them right then and there, then I'm willing to bet that the home decor that you have in your living room is just fine and there's no need to spend money. So whenever you're tempted to buy something, just wait a few days and think about whether or not you actually need it. And if you do need it, then you can always go back and buy it. But if you don't need it, then why waste money? Then a second way you can control your spending and avoid making impulse purchases is by considering the true cost of whatever you are thinking about buying. And you can find the true cost of anything by calculating how many hours of work it would take you to make enough money to pay for whatever you want. For example, if you're making $10 an hour and you go spend $100 on dinner and drinks, then that's the same as you trading 10 hours of work. Or let's say you really want a handbag that costs $2,500. If you're making $10 an hour, then spending $2,500 on one bag is the same as trading 250 hours of work. Or in other words, you would have to work over 6 40-hour work weeks just to buy that one bag. Even if you're making $40 an hour, you would still have to work over 62 hours just to have enough money to buy the bag. And then we are not even considering the fact that you do not get to keep 100% of what you make because you have to pay income taxes. Plus, you also have to pay sales taxes, so in reality, you would have to work even more hours to be able to afford the handbag or anything else you want to buy. So by converting the cost of whatever you want to buy into how many hours of work it will take you to make enough to pay for whatever you are buying, then you will have a better idea of the true cost of what you're spending money on. A third way you can keep yourself from making impulse purchases is to avoid shopping out of boredom. I mean, I know we've all done this where we have nothing else to do, and instead of sitting around doing nothing, you decide to go to a mall and just walk around and kill time. But eventually, you will find yourself walking into different stores and looking around, and before you know it, you're leaving the mall with a handful of bags. Or something else that happens is that you are at home with nothing to do and you begin looking at stuff online, and next thing you know, you end up buying a bunch of things you didn't need. So instead of shopping out of boredom, find something more productive to do, and if you still decide to go to a mall and you find yourself being tempted to buy something, then hold off on buying that item for a few days so you can think about whether or not you really need it. Now, the second way you shouldn't spend money is keeping up with the Joneses, and this is probably one of the top ways people spend money, and many don't even realize they are doing this. And if you have never heard of the term keeping up with the Joneses or you don't know what it means, it is when people try to keep up with the social status of their neighbors, their family, people who they work with, or society in general. This can be buying brand new cars every couple of years, or buying a bigger house in a gated community, or buying luxury items just because other people have those items. Now, if you're someone who can afford this without overextending yourself or having to work multiple jobs just to afford the payments on a new car or the new house, then you can ignore this because it doesn't apply to you. The problem is for those who are living paycheck to paycheck or going into debt simply because they feel they need to keep up with the social status of the people around them. For example, let's say there's a family of 3 who's living in a good neighborhood in a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, but all of their family lives in big houses and gated communities, so they begin to feel social pressure and eventually they go buy a 6-bedroom house in the most expensive part of town, even though they never needed the extra space. What you must realize is that the 3-bedroom house does the same job as a big new house, and that is to provide you with a place to sleep. Now, if you have a big family and you need more space, then I can understand why you would want to move into a house with more space, but even then you shouldn't buy more house than you need. However, the spending doesn't stop there because now the furniture from your old house isn't enough to fill the new house, or it doesn't match your new house. So now you go spend thousands of dollars on new furniture and home decor. And of course, you cannot be living in this nice big house and still drive the 10-year-old car you had before. So now you go buy a brand new BMW, but if your other car is working fine, then there's no reason why you would go spend money on a new car. At the end of the day, the new car is going to do the same job as the car you had before, and that is to get you to work and back and take you wherever else you need to go. So you can see how your spending can quickly escalate, and before you know it, you're living paycheck to paycheck. And this is why there are many people who are making $200,000, $300,000, or even $500,000 and they're still living paycheck to paycheck. The biggest problem with keeping up with the Joneses is that people who live beyond their means will always make up the difference by taking on debt or failing to save and invest. And in either case, the bill will always come due at some point down the road, and that can come as a bankruptcy, a foreclosure, a huge mountain of debt, or being broke in retirement. And the funny thing is, by spending money on things like a big house or expensive cars, you are actually making it more difficult to become financially successful, because things like that do not help you make money. So instead, what you should do is focus on saving and investing as much money as you can, especially when you're younger, because the more you save and invest at a young age, the more time that money has to grow and compound. And that is how you become financially successful and achieve financial independence. The next thing you shouldn't spend money on is always buying name brands. And even though name brands are normally considered to be better quality, that isn't always the case because there's often little or no difference between some of the big brands and generic brands. There was a study done where the price of items was increased by 14%, and instead of people buying less of the item, people began buying more, so sales volume went up when the price of the product went up. And the reason for this is because a higher price suggested a higher value or better quality, and it turns out that increasing the price of a product changes the psychology of the brain, and we believe a higher price means a better product. Now obviously this doesn't apply to everything because there are many products out there that are cheap and they are not as good as a more expensive alternative. But where I have noticed that there isn't much of a difference between a generic brand and a name brand is with cleaning products, self-care products, and a few other household items. For example, if you need napkins, there's no need to go spend 50 to 100% more on some Bounty napkins just because they are the Bounty brand, because just about every single store will have generic brands that are way cheaper and both napkins will do the same job. And the same applies to other household items, self-care products, and even food items, so why pay extra for name brand cotton swabs when the store brand ones are cheaper and they both work the same? And why pay extra for name brand sugar when the store brand sugar tastes the same? Like I said before, not every single generic brand item is going to work or taste the same as a brand name item, and for those who don't, then you simply continue buying the brand name item. But whenever you can find a cheaper option, then you should go with that. The next thing you shouldn't spend money on is unused memberships or subscriptions. The average American spends about $237 per month on various subscriptions, and of course, some people spend more and others spend less. And yes, some memberships and subscriptions are necessary, like a membership to a gym for someone who works out a lot, or a subscription to a graphic design service for someone who's a graphic designer. And then other memberships or subscriptions might even save you money. For example, if you cancel your cable TV and instead you get Netflix, Disney Plus, or Amazon Prime Video, then you could be saving money every month. However, when you're paying for a membership or subscription that you are not using, then that is a huge waste of money. I mean, how many people pay for gym memberships even though they have not gone to the gym in the past few months, yet they keep the membership because they keep telling themselves they will go next week, but of course that never happens. Or how many people keep paying for magazine or online subscriptions even though they never use them, and even though they know they don't read the magazine that comes in the mail, yet they are too lazy to cancel them. And other times, people may have had a subscription that they were using at some point, but they no longer use it and they forgot to cancel it, and every month they end up paying for it. So what you should do is gather your bank statements and credit card statements and go back a few months and find out what subscriptions and memberships you are paying for. And then from there, find out which ones you actually use and which ones you don't. And for those you don't use, you should cancel them right then and there. So with that being said, these are some things you shouldn't spend money on. And if you have any other suggestions, leave a comment down below and let us know. And if you enjoyed this video or you found this information helpful, it would really help me out if you hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.